Let's get ready to rumble! Y'all ready for this?
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of Coffee Time with Blind United. I'm joined in the studio today. I got Brittany and Pedro with me, and we have a special guest in the studio this morning, Marco. I'm not going to say your last name, my brother, because I don't want to butcher it, but good morning, Marco.
Yeah, morning. It's salsicha.
Salsicha. Okay, I just didn't want to. I didn't want to butcher it. So anyway, Pedro, Brittany, y'all good to stay?
Yeah. Good morning, guys. Good morning. I hope everybody's having a great day. Thank you for joining us today. Hey, I'm glad to have Marco on. I got a cool bunch of questions. I'm excited for this type of technology, too, and the way it could bridge the gap in our blind community with certain aspects. So I'm excited for the
Right.
interview, guys.
That's right. That's right. So anyway, so before we get started on the actual technology of this, Marco, I know you got an interesting story about how you got where you're at. So I guess we can just get started there, my brother.
Yeah, happy to. So, yeah, hi everyone. My name's Marco Salsicha. I'm an accessibility specialist, and I call myself a blind graphic designer. Uh, I actually lost my vision very, very suddenly in 2014. Prior to that, I was a senior animator, a visual effects artist, a UX UI designer, and also did some quality engineering for an animation software company. Uh, After I lost my vision, I did all my training and tech training, O&M and everything through the Lighthouse for the Blind in San Francisco. I currently live in Oakland, and through that training, I did a lot of research studies and focus groups with the variety of the tech companies that are around here, and started learning a lot about how accessibility worked, and kind of got worked my way into the field, learning from DQ University, and then I was with Lyft for about 7 years as their accessibility specialist, and then went to DQ as a senior native mobile accessibility coach. And that, unfortunately, that job ended earlier this year. But yeah, here I am now as an accessibility specialist, and along the way, outside of my professional life, like I've been doing a lot of work with all this, what we're going to talk about today with tactile graphics, and kind of getting back in touch with my artistic side that I thought I had lost when I lost my vision.
Okay. Uh, uh, Man, that must have been really something. You say you lost it in a matter of 24 hours. You say you lost your
30
sight?
minutes. 30 minutes
30
actually.
minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, but if I remember your story right, you were visually impaired previously, though, right?
So in a quick nutshell, like I'm in a bilateral retinoblastoma survivor. So
Okay.
I lost my left eye when I was a baby, but they saved my right eye. But I had like 2015 vision, corrected vision, like throughout most of my life, and then
Yeah.
my vision started to go a little south, like from 2010 onwards, and I just lost my
Right.
vision in the midst of that battle.
Right. I mean, but to have it and then lose it so suddenly, I mean, it's just, again, that's I'm glad you didn't let it stop you, my brother. That's kind of, another reason we want to do this. We want to kind of highlight people that didn't let, situations get in their way from pursuing what they really like to do. So
Hmm.
I really appreciate you coming on and doing this, Marco. There's some really interesting stuff you got going on. So uh, you got any more you want to share with us, or I'm gonna let them come at you with their questions?
Did you want me to go into like the graphic side? Because I know that's what.
Well, sure. I mean, because again, explain what SVG is for those that don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
from what I'm understanding from before, this is a coding that's been around for a while, but we've just discovered that this is something that really benefits our community.
exactly. Yeah. So as I said, I lost my vision and thought I would never create art or make any kind of graphics again. And in 2020, well, a little before 2022, I think it was like 2018 or so. I went to the Lighthouse of the Blind adaptation store, and they happened to have a tactile drawing surface there, where you put like a piece of paper on this squishy mat, and then use a pen to kind of push into the paper so you can feel what you're drawing. And I wasn't too enthused about it. Like it was weird. I kept tearing through the paper. I managed to make like a little cute drawing of a character that I used to make back in college of a fun little round owl named Hootie Jr. And yeah, but after the experience there, I wasn't too thrilled with it, so I just sort of moved on. But then in 2022, I was at NFB in Houston, and or no, sorry, New Orleans, where I met Chancey Fleet, who runs the Dimensions Lab out in New York City. And she does a lot of work teaching people how to make tactile graphics. And she showed me the sensational blackboard after one of her presentations, which was a rigid drawing surface that has like a more of like a rubberized silicone surface where you can put any kind of paper on it and just press really hard with a ballpoint pen, and you can create artwork. Um, so here I was drawing again after almost 10 years of being blind, and my characters were coming to life again, and that was absolutely like amazing. And she didn't
Right.
there like she told me about scalable vector graphics, or SVG coding. um, so for sighted web developers and graphic designers, SVGs are old hat. Like they know all about them because they create them for responsive websites. They'll make graphics for websites so they can scale smoothly and cleanly from a small phone screen to a really big 30-inch display. Um, and so these SVG graphics, which are just vector, they were made out of math instead of pixels. It works great for them. But she showed me or told me about how people were using them to create their own graphics just by writing the code itself, bypassing the need for Illustrator, Inkscape, or any of those inaccessible design tools. Um, so from that, yeah, I learned how to create the graphics just by doing code alone, and now I'm made a site to teach other people how to do the same thing.
Okay. Okay. And so these originally, like you say, well, I guess, like you say, it was useful. No matter what size they presented the image in, it would just everything would stay identical. Whether how small would being a thumbnail all the way up to a full page illustration, right?
Yep. Yeah, they're
Okay.
infinitely scalable because it's all done with the coding in the computer. So you can make a tiny little, yeah, as you said, like a little logo the size of your thumbnail, and you can blow that up to the size of a building with no loss in quality. Like it's infinitely scalable.
Okay. 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 But on the flip side, you can also use that same coding to create a tactile image.
Exactly. So using this coding, you can create the paths and lines and shapes and the colors needed to pass them from your graphic. So you create your graphic in code, like in a basic text editor, like TextEdit or Notepad++, whatever you have, and then open that file. You save it out as a .svg file instead of a .txt, and you just open it in a browser like Chrome or Firefox. And from there, I happen to have a View Plus Delta 2 embosser sitting here behind my computer, and it works just like a printer. Once it's open in Chrome, it renders it as a graphic, and then you just print it, and it comes out as a tactile graphic. But this SVG, you can not only can you do embossing, but you can do swell form printing, which we can get into later if you want. But yeah, so swell form. You can do some cry cut stencils. You can do 3D printing extrusions. There's a lot that you can learn from this coding.
Wow. Okay, okay. And the name of the website, if I remember right, it was blindsvg.com.
Exactly. Blind SVG, Sierra Victor
Yeah.
Golf.com.
And what are folks going to find when they go there, Marco?
So they're going to find a whole tutorial on how to start from scratch and build a graphic. Each page takes you through. You don't have to have any coding knowledge, as long as if you're blind or low vision, if you're comfortable writing in a text editor with your screen reader or magnification. It shows you how to set up a file, how to save like a template file, and then has all the code snippets on how to build shapes. It teaches you all the attributes and the things you need to know to make the shapes, make the colors, position things around the canvas, and all the way up to very advanced techniques, and then output techniques, whether you're going to output it as an image, like a PNG or a JPEG or something, or if you're going to output it for tactile use. And all along the way, I'm giving users hints about what to use this for. This isn't just for art. This is very, very versatile coding. So if you're an architecture nerd and you want to come up with some plans, if you want to lay out an event space, like, if you're doing the exhibit hall at NFB, if you want to do circuit diagrams, if you want to create a tattoo, anything, like you can do anything with this design work. The options are limitless for what we can create with this. And
Okay.
yeah, so that's what the site kind of goes through. And the reason I built the site was exactly for what I brought up earlier, where when I was learning about SVG, all of the coding and tutorials that were out there on the web, they were all geared towards sighted web developers. So everything that you learned, it was just crammed with a bunch of stuff that we didn't need to make a tactile graphic. So I took it upon myself to strip all the stuff away we didn't need and put it up there on my website in hopefully a much more digestible and understandable way.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Uh,
I was running through the website. It is accessible.
I
And
hope
it
so.
does explain. Yeah, yeah. Because I'm interested in the graphics design thing that this could bring to our community. I used to be drawing and things like that,
Hmm.
but like you were saying, having a layout of a space that we're attending, amusement parks layout, you
Hmm.
know, have
Hmm.
have positioned the stores on a tactile map that I could bring and actually be able to feel and then guide myself to where I want to go. That's when you said that in one of your showings that you were, I think, in the convention.
Hmm.
I was like, that right there caught my attention. I was like, oh, this could actually bridge the gap for us going to a new location,
Hmm.
you know, especially a crowded location, you know.
Yeah, making your own cartography, basically doing your own mapping. The way that you want to understand it. It's absolutely doable.
Okay,
okay.
okay. And how did you felt when you were able to get something down and be your own comic book drawing or your own character and you were able to feel it? How was that feeling? Because I know when you're done with an artwork and
Mm.
you're taking it in and you're feeling good about it, you're critiquing your work and everything. How's that going with seeing your own work now?
Yeah, it's amazing. It was very, very emotional the first time I did it. I was so from the physical drawing standpoint, when I was sitting there with a sensational blackboard in my story, like I talked about how I was, doing lines and then shapes, and then eventually, as I got the hang of it, like all my muscle memory came back, and I was drawing my characters again, and they came back to life, and that was a really, really big moment for me, realizing the potential of this and how the physical drawing and spatially mapping lines and shapes and how they relate to the size of the canvas and to each other on the page. and how you can translate that mentally into numbers for your digital canvas. That was brilliant. Like, as I started making graphics, it started off very, very rudimentary. I was just using basic shapes in SVG, but I was still able to make some characters and some ideas. And then now, like, I'm designing full on logos for people, like commercial logos, that are, that people want. And it's just brilliant. Like, and the cool thing about it is it's iterative. I could do the code, I'll throw it out, do some copy paper, just do a rough draft of my print and check it out and see, oh, nope, I got that wrong. And then I can go back and just tweak some code, and now I have a new drawing, and you can just keep iterating it. And then later on down the line, maybe somebody has another idea, and I can go back to it, make a new copy, and just start over. I can keep tweaking it, which is amazing.
Right, right, right. In essence, it's just like, well, I mean, of course, you're printing it out, like you say, with your embosser, but I mean, a sheet of paper, there ain't no big issue to be able to feel if you got it exactly right. Is, man, how important is that? Now that we can't really look at a screen and see that.
Yeah, I know it's not everybody has an embosser or has access to those kinds of tools, but that's why we're kind of aiming towards getting them in the hands of more and more people. And I hope that sites like this and drives like this, what we're doing with the tactile drawing and tactile creation, this will kind of allow more people to ask for them and get them in their hands. There are other ways. Like, once you're doing your coding, if you don't happen to have an embosser, if you happen to have a visual interpreter, so someone who's sighted that can look over your shoulder and tell you what's going on, or IRA or something of that nature, even some of Be My Eyes, Be My AI, or like VoiceOver has a detection, kind of like an OCR or image description tool built into it. Even brute forcing it, like printing out the drawing and having someone put it on a tactile drawing service and trace it for you, so you can feel the embossed work. If they really want to help you. So there are
Right.
a variety of options to kind of get through it if you don't happen to have an embosser or any kind of means of
Yeah,
producing
yeah.
graphics.
Yes, and also, you are able to save that graphic into your phone, share it,
Oh
use
yeah,
Be My AI to describe it, and make sure you run it to different engines, and make sure to point out what are the imperfections of the graphics.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's a new game changer right there.
Mm.
Right, I'm amazed with the technology. Another question I had. I know you said that you have to stick to like four colors.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good topic. So there aren't any real like standards when it comes to creating tactile graphics. Like, a lot of different companies, APH, the National Library Service, like a variety of different teams are coming up with different ways of doing graphics. Um, Chansey and I worked together. Like, she gave me a bunch of info when I was just doing all of the coding work, and then sending it to her to emboss when I didn't have an embosser. Like, getting a lot of feedback about how too many colors got too busy. So tactically, it was very difficult to discern what was on the paper. So while I was working from a very visual standpoint, I wanted to, when I made like an owl standing on a branch, and I wanted to give it all the colors, like green leaves and brown trunk, and brown and tan feathers, and all the yellow eyes, and all these kinds of things. Um, and of course, it got way too busy, because with embossers, each color becomes a different dot height, depending on the embosser you have. Like, the View Plus happens to have 8 dot heights, but with finger sensations, we can only tell about a difference of 4 dot heights. So that's why we say try to limit it to only 4 colors if possible. So black being the highest dot height, white being the paper, and then 2 like shading elements, or things to add a little bit more detail if you want.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Yes, because I was reading, and I know you said white is like the right now. You told me it's a flat. I didn't discern that from what I was reading, but thank you for the clarification.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So, thinking I need a little more clarification on something. So when we say a tactographic, we're talking about actual colors, or we're talking about actual shape.
So a tactographic is just an actual, like a physical illustration that's been printed out in a way that you can touch and feel, like a tangible piece of artwork or a tangible graphic that's right in front of you. So, and you use a combination of like the colors and the shapes to create everything that's within the in the graphic. So, um, if you're making a tactile map, you have a bunch of lines all over there, and you have maybe some braille on it to list like the different streets and things and the buildings that are there. Um, if you're doing artwork, you have organic shapes that create characters, or just whatever shapes you can think of. But
Right, right, right.
the actual tactile graphic is the physical piece of media that's sitting in front of you that you can touch and understand.
So I guess it just all clicked in my head now. So if I had a logo and I had a basic four colors in my logo, knowing that the black being the highest, let's say that's the outline or
Mm,
whatever
yep.
kind of situation. Okay, I get it that way. You still feel the shape, knowing that that's the outline. You can feel the oval or whatever
Yeah,
the
you could
shape
feel
of
the
that.
different heights, and then knowing
Right,
the different heights gives you slightly different texture.
right.
Yeah.
Knowing what color each thing is that. Yeah, okay, makes sense to me now. I'm
And
sorry.
yeah, no, it's good thing to know. And the aesthetics are completely different from visible media. So like we're basically creating our own art style to make tactile graphics. Like they may not look very good, but we're not building stuff for sighted people. We're building stuff for
Yeah,
ourselves. So it doesn't
exactly.
matter. We have our own art style,
Right.
and that can also change a little bit depending on the output. So we talked about dot heights because I'm talking about more of like an embosser experience, but output like 3D extrusions, UV printing, or swell form printing, that has a little more leeway over using like gradients and smooth like depth curves like all over the graphic, so you can feel like maybe a little bit like hills on a topographical map,
Mm,
or
mm.
buildings versus pathways. So
So that
there's a
would
little
be
bit more you can do.
more
Mhm.
more for like 3D printers and stuff like that.
Yeah, you can with SVG you can make what I call extrusions. So you're taking like a 2D graphic, and then everything that is black, and of course you can set this for the slicer for those that are familiar with 3D printers, the actual program that turns everything, that converts your image into something that the 3D printer will understand
Hmm.
to print. Anything black will be like the highest point. So if you say like everything black is going to be, I don't know, like a centimeter, maybe like 5 or 6 millimeters high, and then everything gray is smaller, like lower than that. You can turn like a 2D graphic into a 3D touchable object, but only from that like extruded, like going from the bottom up, like an extruded dimension. You're not like making a sphere or a like a full 3D object, if that makes sense.
Okay, okay, okay. Um, I'm understanding. Also, when I was at the CSUN,
Hmm.
I was trying to meet up with you because of my friend Ed right here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
Sorry about
saw
that.
a device. I saw a device that takes a picture of an image,
Mm,
right, and is able to put it into an embosser.
mm, nice.
So I was wondering, we could probably adapt that picture, that technology, to go into SVG code. You think it might be doable? That's what I was trying to get y'all two together to see something like that. If we're able to bridge it and actually take a photo, let's say of a theme park map,
Hmm.
and then transfer it into SGV code.
Interesting idea. The difficult nature part of that is
Okay.
so from the sighted side of things, uh, apps like Adobe Illustrator, they have a thing called Live Trace, where you can scan in let's say you have like a map of a theme park. Maybe it's just like black and white lines, right? Um,
Hmm.
you can scan it in and bring it into Illustrator and do a live trace where it actually turns the pixels. It looks at them and actually creates vector strokes, like it creates actual vector graphics over everything from the pixels. Um, So in that sense, yes, you can create a vector graphic out of that, but the unfortunate thing is if you try to output that as an SVG, it's no longer human readable, because Illustrator, Inkscape, all these cited, these inaccessible tools, they don't produce human readable code. When you actually open an SVG file that's been exported out of Illustrator, it's extraordinarily hard to read, if not impossible, to understand like what path goes where, what shape is what. Like they're not all labeled. And it would be impossible to kind of go in and tweak it or set it unless you really, really, really understand or spend a lot of time like kind of breaking it all down. It can be very hard to do that.
Okay. Okay.
So using where Pedro's trying to go with this, Marco, how would we kind of per se take a map of a theme park or whatever, and then create a tactile map for us to go to the park and be able to follow?
Hmm. So that kind of combines the idea of the physical drawing side of things and spatial reasoning with the canvas that we're working with. So, and on my website, I kind of teach this a little bit as well. When you're dealing with SVG, and we think, let's think about this canvas. Let's say we have a map, and then maybe the map is in portrait, like it's just 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, right? It's just like normal copy paper.
Right.
An embosser will emboss at 100 dots per square inch.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking it that way, that means that if an 8.5 inch by 11 inch sheet of paper, you can understand that as an 850 by 1100 unit canvas. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like 8.5 times 100. Um, an SVG canvas has the origin point is like in the top left corner. That's like 0, 0. Like you haven't moved 0 on X, 0 on Y. It's the top left corner.
Okay.
So
Okay. Okay. I got you. With the
yeah,
Y and the X axis.
exactly. Y and X.
Okay.
Yep. But an SVG, Y is kind of backwards. If you increase Y, like if Y is 100, that
Okay.
means you move down an inch in the paper. Um, so like the center of the piece of paper would be like 425 units horizontally and 550 units down vertically. And as you kind of break these numbers down in your head, like I can see where the quadrants are on my paper, and I can know how big to draw my shapes and where to put my paths. Um, and eventually, as you kind of mentally map this piece of paper and all the shapes you're making, it should come together especially as you emboss it and feel what your numbers are doing. And then you can keep iterating on it until you get something that works really well for you. Does that process make sense?
Yes. Yes. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. 'Cause I work with a lot of those type of um like graphs and all that stuff. So I
Oh, yeah.
picture it like that in my head. And yeah, I understand when you said from the top left corner right now, when you said that 450 and the 420 something, like you landed in the middle of the paper.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And
Oh,
So
wow.
there's no way to really create a actual just like I say, pull up a map of a park and then basically create a tactile map for us to take with us at this point.
the only way for that at the moment, like you don't need SVG for that because embossers and swell form printers, they print graphics. So if you
Okay.
happen to, if the let's say the theme park is accessibility minded and they happen to make a map that is just that, it's literally like black and white lines, some buildings, uh, something that's meant for tactile output, then all you have to do is just open that up in a browser and print it straight to your embosser or print it to your swell form, like do it to a swell form paper and run it through a swell form machine. And that's good to go. The only problem is like you're only going by what they've made. You can't tweak it yourself unless
Right.
you do it yourself.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now I know you mentioned that we were going to talk about it later, and I'm hearing you say it quite a bit now. Swell form.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so again, with so swell form is another method of tactile output. It's really quite interesting. It's a swell paper is a special kind of paper that has microcapsules of alcohol all within the paper itself. And when any ink touches it, so anything with carbon, so if you're using like a Sharpie or printer ink, toner ink, anything like that, um, however much carbon is touching the paper, when you apply heat to it, it puffs it up and it swells the paper wherever the ink is touching. Um, and you get really, really clean and smooth lines, like good curves and some gradients, like really, really highly detailed patterns. It's really quite impressive, and it's very quick to produce. The only problem is it's very pricey. Like copy paper is like a few cents, 20 cents, 10 cents a sheet. But swell paper, as Chancey said, like inflation has come for that as well. It's like almost $2 a sheet.
Ooh.
So it's more like a final output than a testing medium.
Right.
So it can get really pricey.
Okay.
Mm. Oh wow, yeah. So yeah, it can get costly. We're in the mid of the hour, gentlemen. I'm gonna cut to a uh quick break, pay the bills and stuff like that, and we will be back with Marcos and this I call it incredible view of our tactile graphics to get to to be able to draw. I'm interested in that aspect too. So
Mm.
we will be back.
If you'd like to know more about Blind United, you can visit our website at blindunited.org. You can email us at info@blindunited.org. You can call us at 909-846-8825. You can follow us on Instagram at Blind United Interest Groups. You can follow us on X at Blind United 22. You can watch our YouTube channel, Blind United. You could join our Facebook group, Blind United Interest Groups, or you can follow our Facebook page, Blind United.
You are cordially invited to Blind United's Color Party fundraiser on May 25th, 2024. Time 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Cost $15 per person. In advance. Deadline is May 6th, 2024. For more information, email at info@blindunited.com. Include in the subject line Color Party flyer. Now back to coffee time. You are cordially invited to Blind United's scholarship ceremony. Please join us in awarding 2 scholarship recipients in honor of Les Subotnick. Date: Sunday, May 19th, 2024. Held at Rodrigo's Mexican Restaurant, 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. and Omni-access service goes there. Cost per person $37 in advance, which includes your meal, tax and gratuity. Deadline to turn in money, your meal selection, and beverage will be Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. You can contact Cheryl Thurston at cthurston74@gmail.com. We will see you there. Now back to the show.
All right. Well, we got to listen to Brittany on the commercial. We haven't heard her all day. Britt, you got anything you want to add to this conversation?
No, I'm just taking it all in.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, I'm amazed with it, man. So I've never had the ability to really draw. I was never an artist, but of course, I like graphics and graphic design and all that kind of stuff. So it's got to feel good to be able to do this again, draw again, man. I mean, that's. I know I played with I believe it was a silicone back clipboard, and I believe it was some sort of a clear film that we used on it to draw on, Marco. I think that's what it was. But when I was in training center, me and being someone that had sight and lost it, and having conversation with folks that had never had vision, they were wondering what certain shapes and things look like, and I was able to kind of sketch it out on that thing, and it was amazing to them, So I can imagine being able to draw again is just out of this world.
Yeah, it was really, really something special. Yeah, and I know what you're talking about. Like I think APH has a Draftsman. There are a variety of different ones out there. They use like drawing film. I know a lot of like TBIs kind of use it within schools to kind of get kids drawing, and that's also one of the big things that I'm part of as well. Is with the Center for Assistive Technology Training Northwest, we just created the Tangible Art and Design Adventure curriculum, or TADA, which is a whole curriculum for TBIs to kind of use to teach K through 12 students how to draw, and it's kind of our way of like combating what Chancellor Fleet calls the like image poverty of blind and low vision kids, and even adults. Like they don't get as much like visual, of course, no visual stimulus growing up. So
Right,
well, sighted kids get to see millions of images and commercials and things. Blind kids really don't get the same amount. Like they may get one or two tactile books and may
right.
have like toys and things, but they don't get graphics. So getting it, learning, like teaching people early and trying to build like tactile dictionaries and things so people can learn what things look like. That's and how things are represented in a variety of different orientations and dimensions. That's yeah, that's a really big push of mine.
Well, yeah, and then, man, I could see how it's so very, very important. I mean, that was one of the things I was really impressed with at CSUN this year was all of the tactile graphic displays. It's just,
Yeah. Hmm.
I mean, it's just opening up so many doors. I mean, my heart went out to where I just wish I had a whole bunch of money to just, man, give me about 15, 20 of those machines and let me take them around and drop them off at these schools where they got these blind children, because this is a game changer for them to be able to understand what shapes and sizes and all, just that type of thing,
Yeah,
wow.
it's definitely a great time to kind of get into this field, because with the advent of all of these tactile displays, the Monarch, the dot pad, the graffiti from Orbit, the Canute, like there's so many that are coming out there that are being worked on. And some ideas that I've had, even though the resolution at the moment isn't as good for as like an embossing or a swell form, it's still a really interesting bit of technology to have with you when you're creating these graphics, so you can feel live updates about when you tweak your code and open it in Chrome, and then feel the display and make sure that things are going the way you want them to. um, it's definitely very useful to make sure that you're on the right track,
Okay.
on top of like all the braille that you can read on it in one go instead of just one line. It's the graphics work that you can do with it is going to be pretty impressive. And I know that the graffiti is, I think, the only one at the moment that has dot heights, so you can actually feel texture and depth in images when you look at it on the graffiti. uh, that was really impressive.
And that's
Okay.
a braille display or
Yeah, like a braille tablet, like a tactile display.
okay. Yeah, because I know I went when I traveled. I went to Louisiana over there, and no, I mean St. Louis, excuse me.
Hmm.
Um, and I walked into their lobby, and in the middle of the lobby, they had it was scaled down, but everything was measured. That you could feel the people on this it's like a tactile map of the whole facility. So I went to
Hmm.
see the arch. It's called the arch over there at uh Missouri, in St. Louis, and you could feel the trees. You could feel the little cars, the parking lot, the sidewalk, the courthouse, the arch. Everything was scaled down, but was scaled to its original height. So everything you felt is how everything was outside. So you get to feel the walkway, the park, the
Nice.
board, and all the buildings. And if you wanted to get to know and how to get around, you could have felt all that and make some notes on your Victor or recorder, and go and explore the site. That was amazing. Even had braille in there to tell you what it is or what you're
Mhm.
looking at.
Oh,
Play with that.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, those kinds of all just more importance of tactile graphics and displays like that, or experiences like that. Uh, Very similar to that experience. I was in the U.S. Capitol last year, And they actually, Steve Landau of Touch Graphics built this humongous tactile table, which is all of Washington, D.C. And you can feel all the hills, the 3D printed reconstructions of all the buildings, and all the buildings
Hmm.
are at scale models. So you can tell how big the Capitol is versus how tiny the White House is, and
Right, right.
you have your whole hands all over DC, and now I know exactly how everything is laid out, and that kind of spatial experience and understanding is like just brilliant to me.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
that just feeling it with your hands, getting that picture in your mind,
Mm,
that's amazing to me too. I'm like, I'd be blown away when I touch this stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, I could picture all this right now in my head.
yeah,
Right. I mean, these tactile graphics are priceless to us. I mean, they really are, you know. So it's some great stuff.
yeah,
So where do you I know you said it's a great time to get into this kind of stuff like that. So, I mean, do you suggest people start with a website like yours, or how would they go about getting into this field?
yeah. That's basically it. Like, if they're really interested in coding and creating their own graphics, uh, starting with the site, that's a perfect way to start because you learn all the code, you'll learn the techniques. Um, again, it's all free. I just wanted to put this out there for the community.
Huh?
Uh, and I have a lot of resources there as well, pointing to like the Dimensions Lab, the Mad Lab, the Lighthouse for the Blind in San Francisco, and a variety of different resources along the way. But yeah, the SVG coding is a place to start to create your own digital graphics, something like the Sensational Blackboard or any kind of tactile drawing surface. Like you could literally go buy a silicone baking mat from like Target or Walmart or something, put it on a table and put a piece of paper on it with a ballpoint pen and have at it. Start drawing just that way. Uh, yeah, working on skills from both directions. Do the physical drawing to work on spatial reasoning and mapping, and then do the coding to get just into the coding and having fun with it.
Right, because once you've done it with the silicone mat per se, now you're understanding the shapes and
Hmm.
stuff like that, so you understand how to put the coding in the proper places.
Yeah, one of the um, at the Andrew Haskell Braille and Talking Book Library last year, and also coming up this year in New York, we did a teach-in where we taught like a 3-day teaching where we had like 40 blind and low vision folks come and learn how to draw because we were teaching Ann Cunningham's curriculum, and what I had built was a piece of dot paper. So using SVG coding, I made a functional piece of paper. So literally, you throw it through an embosser, and it makes little tiny dots at every 50 unit intervals, horizontally and vertically, like a grid of dots just on this paper. But the dots are high enough to feel, but they're low enough to not really get in the way of a pen. So you could put that on the sensational blackboard and draw something, and you also have all those tactile dots to go by as a guide and understand like how big your shape is and what numbers you should put in to place your whatever you draw like in an SVG canvas. So I have a lot of stuff like that on my website as well, things that kind of help out. But it really does help to have a means of tactile export if at all possible.
Right, 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 right. Well, again, SVG, I'm sorry, blindsvg.com is where you can find all of Marco's stuff where he's simplified it and made it easy for us. So, man, again, there is a definite drought, whatever you want to, forget the terminology you use, Marco, as far as imagery is concerned within our community. Uh, we lose. I mean, just going from visual to non-visual. I mean, I get it because, like you said, I mean, we're seeing millions of images a day, you know, and to go from that to nothing is you lose a whole lot of stimulation, you know, and to be able to give that back to our community is something that's really really needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, Pedro, you got anything else, buddy?
um, um, Yeah, now that you've been having more experience with the tactile graphics,
Mm.
does your workflow become a slightly more quicker, more faster?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like, so when I was an animator and had vision, I would be doing like 100 to 200 drawings a day. So I'm very used to like a lot of output. Now all that muscle memory was coming back to me. So I always have my sensational blackboard with me wherever I go. So I can just, if I have an idea, I can just pull it out and start sketching. And they even have like smaller ones that are a quarter the size of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, so it fits in like a notebook. Um, so I can sketch things really quickly, and then now that really comfortable with SVG and I know the whole canvas, it's really quick for me to kind of throw together general ideas as I start refining more and more, uh, shapes and things. So yeah, you'll get faster, of course, as with anything. Practice, practice, practice.
So let's say, for instance, we wanted to take our Lego, Marco, and get it in a tactile form. Is there anybody out there that's actually doing this type of work right now?
Um, yeah, depending on where you are, the Dimensions Lab in New York City, Chancey will be happy to help folks who have a graphic and want to learn how to make it tactile. And they have all the means of producing those, the graphics in a variety of different ways. The Mad Lab out here in San Francisco, the Naomi Rosenberg and the team there, they're doing a lot of work as well. Um, I would hope that some blind resource centers, no matter where you are near you, would happen to have as like at least an embosser or a small form printer, or a lab for that. But yeah, and as more and more people have these means of making the graphics, I think it'll start expanding.
Mm, okay, okay. And what is some of the obstacles some folks may run into when they're starting SGV coding? So they could just have a heads up on what to what might put a roadblock with their with their graphics.
Yeah, definitely. And I do bring this up as well on my site. So SVG is not a progressive like functional code. So when you hear coding, I think people think about like Python, JavaScript, Swift, like all those codes where they're creating apps and things. But SVG is XML based. So it's very, very similar to HTML, and it uses CSS to do styling. So syntax is very important. A common mistake is to like go in and maybe miss a quotation mark somewhere, or not close a shape properly. Like the shapes are as easily to make as doing a less than symbol, a circle, and then you really write the word circle, and then there's attributes like the center of the X, center of the Y, the radius of the circle. And then you add different attributes like the stroke and the width and the color, and then you close it with a forward slash and then a greater than. So all the syntax is there on the website, but a very common pitfall is like people just making syntactic just mistakes in the typing. So it's important to be comfortable with typing, or be comfortable going back through your code, either listening through with the screen reader or using Braille display. That Braille display can really help you read your lines of code. And Chrome, if you open an SVG in Chrome, it actually does have a parser built into it. So if you happen to have a mistake, Chrome will even tell you, hey, there's a mistake, and it'll tell you what line it's on. So you can go back to your text editor and jump to that line and go fix it. But yeah, that's mostly the common things is like getting this, maybe not getting the scale right, or just generally making just small little typographic bugs here and there.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
I heard you mention this. There is a difference when for a swell printer, or you just use swell paper.
Yeah, so you need the paper and you need the means of applying heat to the paper, and so you have a swell form machine. They had one at CSUN that I got to play with. It's called the P-Off. That's one of the companies that makes it. I know about the Enfuse, and there may be some others. Uh, but essentially it's so you have the special paper, you run that paper through an ink printer, or you can even draw on it with like a Sharpie or a pen that
Right.
has carbon ink, and then they just put it on this platter, and then there's this small box that has like a heat element in it. It's kind of like a pizza oven, and it just rolls it on through, and it's very, very, very quick. But yeah, it applies heat to the paper, it swells everything up, and then when it comes out the other side, it's all puffed up and ready to touch.
Okay. Okay. I was just thinking you could just print it out and hit it with a hair dryer.
Won't be. I haven't tried that. I don't think it's hot enough, but you could try. I don't.
I don't know. The one when the women use it, you point it and direct that heat directly on the paper or something like that. I don't know, but
Yeah, or a
I
heat
don't
gun
know.
or something, maybe.
Right, a heat gun, maybe something. Because they say the heat gun gives out enough to actually set paper on fire. I'm not sure, but
I'd be really
uh,
careful about that.
exactly. But again, blind folks in heat, it don't really mix too well. So depending on what form it's in, anyway. So, but yeah, man, this has been very, very interesting, man. I mean, I love your story. I love the determination. The fact that you got back in and was able to, you know, I mean, it sounds like you've actually created another career due to your actual blindness, but you also found your true love passion of art,
Mhm.
through technology as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's been amazing.
And I mean, we always need as much help as we can in the accessibility field as well. I mean, hopefully one day we'll get where this stuff is not so expensive when it gets created.
Mhm.
But I know it takes a lot of research and a lot of that, prototyping and just trying to get it right. But again, it's sometimes seems like these folks are trying to make all their money off of one unit.
Right. Yeah.
And and
So,
um how do you see the future for our tactile graphics? What do you see maybe coming on in the future, where you see this could probably go and and be really useful for us?
Yeah. I mean, this is what I'm trying to innovate here is one of the things I didn't bring up is also like using tactile graphics to print out and understand wireframes for web and print layout. So one of the things I've actually used this for in my professional life is when I'm doing accessibility work and I'm talking with designers about how to make their interfaces accessible. Uh, they actually send me the SVG code of their interface that they design, and then I just throw that into my embosser, and I can actually feel, the designs that we're talking about when we're doing a critique. So now I'm in touch with the very graphics that we're discussing and the interface that we're discussing, which helps me understand it a lot more. And that kind of work, that can spread to having a lot more blind and low vision UX UI designers and people creating their own graphics and creating their own data visualizations or creating whatever they need. It opens up, so much more for anyone who wants to build their own graphics and get involved in the graphics industry and not just let sighted people have domain over everything. Um, and then in the future, there's a lot of work kind of going on about how to take an image, as you said, like take a picture of a picture and turn it into something that was embossed, like on a tactile display. Um, there's a lot of work going on for that, like how to take an image and turn it into exactly what we need for outlines to make a proper tactile graphic that's a little more understandable. And
Hmm.
then with the advent of AI, I know that my colleagues like Chancey and Danielle Montour, they've been doing a lot of work with like Chat GPT and telling it to create graphics, like either creating an SVG, turning the code into something human readable. So if you happen to have trouble with the SVG code and you just wanted to figure out, like, how do I make a red circle that's 24 units in diameter? You can just ask ChatGPT how to do that in SVG code, and it'll spit it out for you. And then you can, take that and run with it with whatever you're creating. So there's a lot going on there in terms of education and in terms of application. Uh, but yeah, it's going to be a really interesting future.
Yeah. I do mess around with the chat GPT, and I generated graphics before.
Hmm.
I am completely blind, so I do need to run them through another model, make sure I get all these mistakes and critiques. And sometimes I do have somebody cited to double check,
Yeah.
some of the work. Um, and I know you can use ChatGPT to code. I'm
Hmm.
gonna see and explore some of that now that you uh gave me that idea. I didn't thought about that before.
Hmm.
And man, all this sounds interesting and promising to our community.
Of course.
Yeah. Um, yeah,
I
learning
mean,
how to using the chat GPT to do the coding, that's definitely a thing that a lot of people are trying out. But again, yeah, you want to make sure that you're double checking and you're doing lateral uh, research, because if you start asking it like if you can do things in SVG, there is a chance where it can get it wrong.
Yeah, yes, there's a big chance it's gonna get it wrong.
Yeah, so
I was talking about like getting some tips,
yeah,
descriptions, and maybe some pointers to so I could do the coding myself, because I know it's gonna include all the extra stuff that we don't include unless I train the model to focus on what we actually need
yeah,
and feed it the information that we're going to use to create and how we're going to create it. Yeah, that might be something to work with and see what happens.
definitely. And again, on my website as well, I made sure that all the code snippets that are there, I built in like copy to clipboard buttons. You can just click the button and go over to your text
Hmm.
editor and paste it, and it'll copy the code exactly. So you can, go in there and start tweaking it and messing around with it at your leisure and learn, like see how the syntax is written.
Okay, so hey, he has made his website accessible, hey, easy to use. So
Yep,
let's jump on it, folks. Once again, that's blindsvg.com, right?
that's correct. Yep.
that's where he already did all the hard work for you. All you got to do is put the pieces together.
Hmm.
So, man, this has really been great, Marco. It really has. I know people are going to want to hear this. Just so you know, we played right after convention. We played some clips of your presentation at convention the week after convention. So, trying to create a a little bit more buzz about all this kind of stuff. I'm excited about it. Pedro's excited about it. So. I can tell you're excited about it. So we're just trying to get everybody excited. Man, to me, it's amazing. I mean, it's just tactile graphics. Oh my God. It's just, being able to feel what things look like again. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's amazing. So, with all that being said, again, man, I want to say thank you very much. You want to put anything out there about how people can get at you or anything like that?
Yeah. So again, my website's blindsvg.com. That's the main one. My primary website is marconius.com. That's marconius.com. And I'm accessible through both those means. And you can find me on a variety of Twitter and Facebook and yeah, I'm kind of all over. I'm pretty easy to find once you use my name.
Well, Marco, I appreciate you for coming on and hanging out with us here on Blind United. And Pedro,
Yeah,
Britt,
thank you.
y'all got anything on the way out?
Thanks, Marco. Thank you again. You clarified a lot of things. I was going through your website. I had a lot of questions that you answered right out the bat. I didn't have to ask too much. Thank you for coming on and blessing us with your presence. Because, man, this could open a lot of doors. And our doors open. You're welcome anytime you would like to come on and talk graphics.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, we appreciate you for coming on, my brother. So until the next time, we will see you on the next call.